has for weeks been massing troops and tanks along the Ukrainian border, prompting Ukraine, Poland and Lithuania to call for more Western sanctions against it in fear of an invasion. A joint statement by the countries today accused Russia of continuing aggression and urged NATO to act. Russia has denied preparing for an invasion and has accused the West of threatening Russia through NATO expansion. Our Moscow correspondent Steve Rosenberg has been investigating just what President Putin might be planning.
In Russia too, it is the season of goodwill. But peace on earth is in short supply. Russian armour is massing near the border with Ukraine. At the same time, Moscow is demanding an end to NATO enlargement and NATO military activity in Eastern Europe. What is Russia signalling? I asked the Deputy Foreign Minister, has Moscow decided to reverse the results of the Cold War?
We're
not re-examining the results of the Cold War. We're reassessing the expansion the West has carried out in recent years against Russian interests with hostile intent. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
State TV has been echoing Vladimir Putin's claim that NATO activity close to Russia threatens Russia's security. And Moscow has this warning.
If Ukraine joins NATO, or if NATO develops military infrastructure there, we will hold a gun to America's head. Russia has the world's best weapons, hypersonic. You'd get the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again, but with a shorter flight time for missiles. We propose trying to avoid this situation. Otherwise, everyone will be turned into radioactive ash.
Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Ha, Rekak Wadash, Ma'amach. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone and their elders. Double honors to my elder as well, Aharawan Ben Yasha'Allah of the Lions Den Camp. And salutations to the fellow Akim, Outwafim and Trojan that believe in truth and sincerity. It's your brother Athan Ya'Allah back to another lesson, and Yaharatazah is edifying. All right, and pretty much you heard it. All right, and hey, that's war talk, you know. Pretty much the West being America, Babylon, ultimately being the spearhead and the hammer, man, of what you call the NATO and the EU, all right? That put forth the demonocracy, man, and extort these other nations, always sticking their nose in other people's business, man. And ultimately they're poking the bear, all right, as they're threatening Russia and, and provoking them, man, as playing around at their back door being Ukraine. All right, you know, America trying to host missiles, man, near Russia. All right, being hosting it in Ukraine, being the back door of Russia. All right, where you have Ukraine pretty much want to be independent, right, sovereign, you know, and America is using that opportunity to stir up strife between Ukraine and Russia. All right. You know, ultimately the doing of the elites, you know, ultimately the doing of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man, to bring the elites down, you know, and ultimately Esau, Edom, the so-called Caucasian race, bring them out of power, man, out of rulership, you know, because, hey, no matter if you French Caucasian, British Caucasian, Russian Caucasian, all right, or you consider yourself to be American Caucasian, all right, you all are Edomites, all right, descendants of Esau, Edom, all right, Edomites, pretty much from geographically, all right, the Caucasus Mountains, man, out of Georgia, Russia, all right. You're the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, man, and the Lord hates you, man, according to Malachi 1:3, man, you know, in Romans 13:9, I believe, all right. But nevertheless, you know, you have talks of war, you know, the Lord bringing, about to bring judgment, man, and stirring up these heathen nations and gathering them together ultimately to come against America, all right? So as you heard them, man, enough is enough, all right? And one of the scriptures I wanted to get and start off with is Joel 3, and I'll start in verse 9. proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong, right? You know, and that's what they pretty much been doing since the Cold War, all right? Since World War II, you know, ultimately it turning into the Cold War on who was the arms race, right? Who's the first one to get up to the moon, you know, so to speak, all right? Even though America faked the funk, you know, we believe, all right, they didn't pass the Van Allen belt. That's a whole nother story, all right? But ultimately, it's the Lord turning these heathen nations ultimately to turn their ancient war tools and war surplus into modern day war surplus, which is what? The missiles, man. You know, ICBM missiles. As stated in Isaiah 54:16, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy. Right, so the Most High created these scientists, all right, teaming, being the smarts of Esau, Edom, all right, these scientists that ultimately was able to split the atom, all right, and create the atomic bomb, man. A big man and little man, you know, which they used to drop on Japan, all right, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, all right, which shook the earth, all right, which started the arms race, man, where all these nations started to build nuclear missiles, all right, and what you amount to today, where they're still practicing and advancing and perfecting their military they missiles, man, you know, because ultimately the Lord is going to denuclearize the earth, all right? He's going to cause them to cast them all off onto America, which is prophesied in Revelations 22, I believe, all right? 200,000 thousands, all right? Which 200 million missile warheads is prophesied to hit America and wipe America off the face of the earth, to make America what? The lake of fire, all right? We brought out Joel 3:9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong, right? Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Neither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be weakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? Yahweh Shaphat, where the Lord is going to judge all these nations, man. You know, for ultimately for touching the apple of his eye, ultimately for Psalms 83, you know, that crafty counsel and them being confederate against thee, all right? And all having hands in doing, all having hands into our captivity, all right, or our oppression, you know. So it's all for you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans' sake that the world shall war no more, man. You know, this last war, which is the Third World War, is going to be a coward's war, all right. As you heard him mention the Cuban Missile Crisis, all right, which was in 1962, all right. When I look up the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's in 1962, where it lasted a month in 4-day confrontation between the United States and Soviet Union, which escalated into an international crisis when America deployments of missiles in Italy and Turkey were matched by Soviet deployments of similar ballistic missiles in Cuba. And if you remember articles about a year or so ago where Russia was staging missiles in Venezuela, all right? So everything is already set up and put in place, all right, for the Third World War. Whoa, you know, as we stated, man, this all for the children of Israel's sake, you know, for the ushering in of our kingdom, all right, and that there should be no war on earth anymore, all right. And it's the book of Micah, chapter 4 and verse 3. And he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off, right? You know, and ultimately he's going to judge the kings and rulers and princes of the earth, all right? And ultimately he's going to cause all of them to be drawn to the Middle East, to that region of war, and Yahweh Shaphat, you know, the Lord's judgment. This is Micah 4 and 3. And he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. You know, so ultimately this last war is gonna be the end of all wars, man. So man could war no more. You know, as you can see here, Venezuela to America distance is not too far, all right? You know, as you had threats from Russia as well, talking about they can wipe off the whole state of Florida or the whole state of Texas and things like that, you know, as well as they can invade America through Alaska, all right? Back in Joel chapter 3, I wanted to get all the way to verse 16. And I start at verse 12, and it's Joel 3 and 12. Let the heathen be weakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. You know, just like we're speaking on, you know, and ultimately the Lord is going to raise up Russia to do his will, you know, even though he's against Russia. All right. I believe that's Ezekiel 38 and verse 1. And the Lord, Salakia, and the word of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against them. And Gog and Magog ultimately represent Russia today, which geographically is say East Asia, all right? You know, as well as the area of the Medes, okay? So this is the Lord instructing, hey, to set thy face against Gog, all right? Ultimately Russia, and prophesy against them. In verse 3, and say, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O God, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, right? Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with them, right? Other heathen nations, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself. And here's the point. Thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Right? You know, so the Lord is ultimately against Gog and Magog, Russia, but he's instructing them to be a guard unto these other heathen nations, man. We're showing you how the Lord operates, man. He ruleth in the kingdom of men, you know, as it's written in Daniel 4 and 17. All right, he give it to whoever so he will, man. He do whatever he want to do on his chessboard, man. And he using a Gog and Magog as a pawn piece to ultimately bring the judgment upon all Idumea, you know, all Esau, Edom, you know. As I stated before, man, whether they're British Caucasian, Russian Caucasian, or self-proclaim themselves to be, they're all Esau, they're all Edomites, you know, descendants of Esau, and they have a judgment at hand, you know, and the Lord is ultimately using Russia, and he's going to use Russia, being that, bringing them, putting them back in that Soviet Union mindset, you know, Salakia, you know, it's spoken of as well, you know, turning that hook into their jaws, man, you know, ultimately They don't want a war, but the Lord is putting war in their minds and in their hearts, you know, ultimately to fulfill his will. You know, so again, the Lord ruleth in the kingdom of men, you know. He bringeth up and he bringeth down, you know. You know, so as we stated before, Russia had already staged missiles in Venezuela, I believe. You know, when the times of Venezuela was going through their economical crash, you know, it was famine in Venezuela. All right, they were ushering in the blockchain currency as well in Venezuela around that time. Okay. All right. From there, I want to go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 13 and verse 17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Right? You know, and again, that Medes geographically would represent a Russia today. All right. And they're not going to regard silver or gold, man. There's nothing, they don't want anything from America. As you see, you know, Putin is tired of America's lies. All right. Babylon being the spearhead, this hammer, lies. All right. And know that they're all being used to by NATO, you know, and manipulated by NATO. And they're tired of being extorted, man, ultimately, you know. It says, they shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. In verse 18, their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. In Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, and neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there. You know, ultimately it's going to be wiped off the face of the earth, man. You know, as we stated before, you know. So, the Lord is bringing them back into that Soviet Union mindset, you know, ultimately fighting over their back door, which is Ukraine, because they see the military tactic as Putin is a man of war, you know, as well as he's an ex KGB operative, you know, so he's not buying the same notion that America's been dealing all these years, man, of acting, you know, playing as they're here to defend somebody, but they're really here to take over, man, you know, and to extort. You know, they're not buying it. You know, ultimately they're going to stand strong, and they're going to ultimately be a form of their own NATO and EU. They're going to be their own form, you know, so a hammer, so to speak, their own military might, and a spearhead for these other heathen nations, you know, as America is for the NATO and the EU. I want to get Nahum 3:19, and it reads, there is no healing of thy bruise, thy wound is grievous. All that hear the bruit of thee shall clap their hands over thee, for upon whom have not thy wickedness passed continually, right? You know, so these other nations is ready for someone to stand up and get balls and stand up against America, this whore who has been raping and robbing and pillaging throughout the four corners of the earth, you know, so they can join in to the party as well and ultimately do the Lord's will and hey, make America a memorial, you know. And this is Job chapter 27 and verse 20. And Yahweh Ratazah, this lesson was edifying. You know, we're in the times of great prophecy. All right. And though it tarry, wait for it, man. You know, as the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 9 states, man, we are to be a watch, measure the times diligently in itself, man. You know, it's Job 27 and 20. Terrors take hold on him as waters. A tempest stealeth him away in the night. The east wind carrieth him away, and he departeth. And as a storm hurleth him out of his place. For Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua shall cast upon him and not spare. He would fain flee out of his hand. Look at that word, feign. He will feign, flee. You will run away, chase, drive away, put to flight. Yeah, because this devil finna be in straits. You know, he will feign flee out of his place. For God shall cast, this verse 22, for Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua shall cast upon him and not spare. He will feign flee out of his hand. Men shall clap their hands at him and shall hiss him out of his place. God. And that's ultimately the Lord go put in these heathen nations to do to this damn devil. All right. Ultimately to bring their whole kingdom down as a whole, man. And they're going to know that the Lord ruleth in the kingdom of men, man. And ultimately, he dwell in Zion, man. In Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American, and Seminole Indians. And those are the speckled bird who may look like the other nations, but better spirit as such. You know, so we're in times of great prophecy. All right. Throw it, Terry, wait for it, you know, to watch. All right. As this war talk being talked about. You know, we're still waiting on the mandatory of Revelations 13 and 15 on down, right? Being the MOTB. And, hey, Shalom, Mahabatha, and ETA.